this is the trailer that I made and it got all this attention. I have so much more on the cutting room floor that I didn't put in here.
Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about how that Bloodsport Redux trailer went viral, why they need to make this movie, of course, because it's Bloodsport related. We're going to talk about Van Damme, we're going to talk about Frank Dux. My guest on the channel, by the way, is the guy that made the trailer. He created, his name's Dan. He runs a YouTube channel, Big Fan Trailers. Check it out. I'm sure you're already aware of it, but I'll link it in the description below. But essentially, I made a breakdown of that trailer because it's amazing, right? And then he commented in that video I made, he said, it's such an honor to not only have Viking Samurai review the trailer, but have such positive things to say about it. It was a true joy to hear from him to pick up on things that only such a dedicated fan would. I would love to break down the trailer in more depth of Viking as it was partly inspired by content from this channel. So here we go. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what I mentioned earlier. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, please help support the channel by hitting the like button, subscribing, sharing the video.
Glad that you decided that you reached out to have me on here, because otherwise I'd just be talking to this annoying my girlfriend about it, who not who I forced to watch, a number of films she wasn't particularly interested in the beginning to watch. But I have to give you credit. She actually came around and really enjoyed. We watched the No Retreat, No Surrender not long ago. That she really enjoyed.
Wow,
It has its place, so
that's cool. Yeah, it's entertaining, man, for sure. But let's just to start off, like, why did you create this YouTube channel? Like, where'd you get the idea to make these fan trailers, essentially?
Well, I used to work in film and television in Australia a long time ago. That was what I started doing originally, but have not done that in a very long time. But because of COVID, here in Melbourne, I don't know if you'd know, but we spent the most time in lockdown, I think, anywhere else in the
I
world.
heard, man. I've met quite a few people from Australia through the channel, and I heard that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, look, it gave me plenty of time inside, and it gave me a great opportunity to get back to what I love doing. And so because I was able to spend so much time on the Bloodsport trailer, I was really able to get into the weeds with it and really get into the minutiae of it and really develop a backstory. Like it started with me doing just one shot. And then from that one shot, I looked at it and I went, this looks like, I reckon, this is something that fans would want to see. And
Oh,
so I
it
really
100% is, man. Just the
yeah,
comments have blown up. I mean, Van Damme shared it on his own YouTube page.
yeah,
It's crazy. That's got to be like the
yeah.
highest honor.
Oh, it was incredible. I was a bit blown away by that. It just went from strength to strength to strength from when I first posted it, because I just posted it. I just wanted to basically make a bunch of film trailers, just a bit of like a portfolio almost.
Mhm.
They didn't have that many views, but then one day I looked across at it at my page, and all of a sudden it had 90,000 views on the Bloodsport trailer. And I went, that's a bit more than usual. And I flicked across social media and found that, I went to the engagement section of my page and noticed that I was getting a lot of traffic from Twitter. And that's when I noticed a few, people with big Twitter followings were actually posting it. So Conor McGregor's coach, Kavanagh, what's his first name? Kavanagh, I know his
Yeah,
last name,
sure.
Kavanagh. He reposted it saying, JCVD, can you make this movie? And then there was a
Wow.
wrestler from All Elite Wrestling, I think his name's Ethan Page, had posted it thinking it was real. He said, I got to thank my friend Paul Cabana for letting me know that this is happening. It's made my day. And so because it's sort of, before anybody could know that obviously it's a fan trailer, people had picked it up thinking it was going to be a real thing. And by the time, people started picking up on that, it was up at about 1 million views. And I think it's slowed down a bit, but it's now about 2.3.
That is
But
crazy. And that was only your second video ever, right?
well, yeah, it's my second video that I've posted to YouTube. But yeah. That one there, I did spend quite a bit more time on, just because it was a bit more close to my heart, if that makes sense.
So you're basically, it sounds like a huge Bloodsport fan, obviously.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no,
But when
definitely.
you say real quick, Dan, that you wanted to create something you want to see, now you're talking about like you want to see an actual real sequel to Bloodsport. Is that why you made the trailer, to get interest in it?
There was yeah, I in my heart there was. I mean, if I have to be honest, I was doing it at home just because I wanted to do it. In deep down, I thought, I think this is something that people would pick up on.
Mhm.
It started off just because it's something that I'm a fan of, but I think I did mention to you, I don't know whether I wrote in the comments or not, but I did mention that I was partly inspired by a video that you did where you went through every single character from
Oh,
the
all the
original.
fighters in Bloodsport. That was a 3-part series. I mean, that took a lot of work and research, man.
Yeah, no, and I thought, because the reason why that sort of partly inspired is, if you look at the in the trailer, that in the trailer there's the sequence of the dream sequence, right, where you see the arena, the old Kumite arena, and there's nothing in it, and then Bolo and Van Damme walk to the middle of it. That's the scene I started with, but then I thought, what would it look like to have all these other characters? And so in doing my research, I came across all your videos,
Oh, that's funny.
and I saw that and I went, oh, that would be fantastic, to do an actual trailer and to have all the original cast, as much of the original cast
Oh,
as
yeah,
you could.
sure.
Yeah, and so that's why, and it was very hard to not to leave some people out of the trailer that I thought it wouldn't actually work for the film, or I wasn't able to put in a credible way. But you know, looking through, you can see that Michael Kesey, he's a guy that, you know, he's been in many great films, and he has a great relationship with Van Damme. There would be no reason why he couldn't return
Sure.
to reprise his character, and also Michael. Was it Michael Tocha? I believe his name is Paco.
Paula Tocha?
Paul Tocha,
Or,
sorry,
yeah,
yeah,
Paco.
Paco. You know, I saw that interview that he did, and like, that would be great. Paco is one of the you know, one of everyone's favorite
I
characters.
love that fight scene with him and Van Damme. That's a beautiful fight scene.
Fantastic.
How we revisit that one, you know?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Because you mentioned it took you a while to put together. Like, how long did this take to put together?
Well, it's a bit hard to say because it's something that I've had to do in my spare time. It's not my, it's not something I do able to do full time. I have another job, but I'd say over about 3 or 4 months, and a lot of that was just making, you know, sourcing all the material for it. Because, you know, it's one thing just to have, you know, to put together clips. It's another to try make a coherent story out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really had to spend a lot of time looking at a lot of footage. I watched maybe 4 or 5 Van Damme films just to get whatever I could out of it. And in the end, I ended up using a lot of audio that came from interviews.
Sure.
Because, you know, the films, it's going to be hard to get clean audio. And it's going to be hard to get him talking about certain things.
I start to believe in destiny more than anything else.
So I think you alluded to, you try to answer some of those questions in your breakdown about where some of the audio was from. And it was from a bunch of interviews. There was an interview that he did in Australia, where what happened is I was looking at, there's the cat again.
Yeah, there he goes. There's Ollie.
Has to make an
Ollie.
appearance.
Okay, he's the real star of the show, but
yeah. Yeah, and I was basically finding that, you know, when you look at interviews, he's saying all very nice things. So I sort of looked for interviews that didn't go so well, and it really gave me the audio that I needed for it, you know, something a bit more gritty. And so, yeah.
It's so well done and polished that, you know, it's funny because a lot of people have been sending it to me either on Instagram or like on Facebook or just commenting in other videos that I've made. And then a few of them actually thought it was real. So, I mean, that's a huge compliment because it is such like professionally done and so polished. And that's why I was, you know, curious on the background. And when you said you used to be in film and television, it's like, yeah, this isn't just like a random dude who put it together. this is like a guy that had to have worked in editing or film it somehow.
Yeah, editing was my thing back in the day. I was pretty much an editor. I say back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, but I originally started off in editing. But like I was saying, because of COVID, I was able to really get into, trying to look at doing some more visual effects stuff and really manipulate footage rather than just editing footage. Because I think that really made a big difference in this trailer, because it'd be one thing just to have clips from other films.
Sure.
But, I figured that's not going to cut it. I need to have something. There's things that I wanted to see to put in there. So, for example, there's a scene just as the sort of in the trailer, there's you hear Senzo Tanaka say, well, just before he starts talking to Senzo Tanaka in his dream, you hear him say Shidoshi, which is from the original film.
Shidoshi?
But in that shot, it's actually a shot from the film The Bouncer, which is fantastic, by the way.
Film.
That was partly part of the inspiration for the trailer, because watching that film, I thought, imagine this performance from Van Damme in a blood sport setting. That scene there was actually, I took a still shot from, there's a 3D artist, I forgot his name, I think it's Stavros Karagianis. He's a great artist, and he's made a model of the Kumite Arena. Anyway, I took a still of that arena and placed it in the background and cut out Van Damme from a scene in The Bouncer to make it look like he's in the Kumite Arena. And I thought that putting him there in that arena is going to make that world also more real. Oh, whereas if he's just got shots from other films, then it would still look good, I think. But having him actually in there, seeing Van Damme in that arena, and just in the background you see the flames and you see the, all the signs and the stage and the judges table. Just when you see that as a fan, would make you go,
And that's why people question, because it's footage we haven't seen. I recognize stuff from The Bouncer. Some people recognize stuff from the movie Warrior. Van Johnson, I recognize stuff. But having that shot you just described, it's wait a minute. This is something that this guy made, or it was filmed even. This isn't just something he pulled from another movie. So it brings that level of realism, it's and it made people question, is this thing real?
Yeah. That little snippet that I have in the trailer where it has the original shot from Bloodsport where the competitors are walking onto the stage was a much longer shot that I had. And that was the original idea that I had, was you have an empty arena and you have some voiceovers, you have some exposition telling the story of what's happening. A light comes on, you can see this is the Kumite Arena, and then the two competitors walk out. And I had a longer sequence planned out, but that sequence alone took me probably a month to do alone, because I basically it's basically called rotoscoping. I believe that's probably the most common term for it. Basically, what I did is I cut out each character from the scene in every single frame. And then I had to try and match that with the lighting and the color. And I had to put the shadows in. And because the stage sort of goes upwards, you can't just have the shadow. You can't just plonk a shadow underneath it and then it tracks the character. It doesn't work like that. It has to go across and then up the ramp. So I had to make two separate shadows. And I spent so much time, and I was so finicky with it. I even had, I tried to make some sand getting kicked up on the stage. And by the time I'd spent a month doing that, I went, it'll take forever if I keep trying to do it. So I should just try to do something a bit more, something a bit more tangible. And then I started looking. I watched The Bouncer and I watched a few other films, and I thought, hey, this could be something cool if I try to put something together. And it's, as I mentioned, The Bouncer, when I did watch The Bouncer and seeing his performance in that, it's sort of, I sort of thought of, imagine, my imagination ran wild. And I thought, wouldn't it be so cool to see, for instance, a number of years ago, Mickey Rourke, I think he did Sin City, but then he did a film called The Wrestler.
Oh, it's a great film.
Yeah, I really love that. And watching The Bouncer, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if Van Damme could play, this could be his wrestler, where he has this big film where it's critically acclaimed, and he gets to show his, it's a bit more of a less of an action film, but something that gets to show his I wouldn't say necessarily acting skill, but more what's behind that, the real him in a way. And that's sort of set the tone for the trailer as well. Is I wanted to make sure that it had some grounding in the real world and a reflection, like they say, art. What's the saying? Art reflects.
Art
reflects
imitates
art,
life, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or life imitates
Yes,
art.
that's the one. Yeah.
One of the two.
And so, yeah. Where you have the first Bloodsport is young and vibrant and action packed and a bit naive, and it reflects Van Damme becoming an actor and wanting to make it.
I can do it.
And being youthful and being this guy that hits the pinnacle. Now the Bloodsport sequel, taking years later, he's now been through the Hollywood machine, and so has Dux. He's had the critics. He's had time to see not only the really good fans, but also the detractors, and come out a grizzled veteran on the other end. And what comes of that is a much more gritty, but much more satisfying rise out of that. And I thought that would just be such a great movie. And also a movie where you would, because people are already invested in that character and in that world, it wouldn't need to be the action film that that the original was, but you could still, obviously, any action that you did have would really land, I feel.
Oh, sure. Hey, real quick, Dan, speaking of Frank Dux, where do you stand? He's highly controversial. Some people actually believe everything, and then some people believe nothing. I'm more somewhere in the middle, where I think there's something there, but not, on the side. I'm not going to believe everything, but I'm not going to discount the man entirely. Where do you stand on the Frank Dux thing?
Let me address that by talking about my thoughts on that and how it came in, how it was involved in the trailer.
Oh, sure.
So with that with the whole Frank Dux story, I think it actually plays into the trailer itself. I think having that mystery would also be something that is a bit of a hook for the film. And the reason why that would work is because in real life, it is a mystery. Frank Dux, when he got involved with Bloodsport at a time where there wasn't the internet.
Yeah.
It wasn't film, really. People didn't just film themselves doing things that they do. Now you can walk to the street to get some milk and you'll be filmed probably by the camera somewhere. I personally stand on it. I don't know. I just because of what I know from the fact that there was a lawsuit and everything else like that, there's obviously things that if you I don't know, have you seen the interview that he did with The Voice, Chevelle, I think the Australian commentator? If you watch something like that, it does become apparent that there's things that he's not going to be able to verify. There's claims that are just completely unfalsifiable to an extent. As far as where we stand with the movie, I don't care. I think it's great that there is that mystery, because that's what, once you watch Bloodsport, I don't know if you did at this film, but when I watched it as a kid and I saw at the end, this is based on the true story of Frank Dux, he had the world record for the knockout, blah, 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 blah. That only made me want to watch Bloodsport again.
Oh, sure.
And so, with that whole mystery involved with it, I think it adds to the mythos of it in a way.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't, I leave that to you to talk about. That's, people like you to break apart.
And I'm going to go in deep on it, man. I'm going to post a series of videos. Now, I was speaking to Alan Goldberg. We'll just say Alan Goldberg and Frank Dux are enemies. I mean, to put it bluntly, that they're probably their biggest enemies, right? And they go on Twitter wars and stuff. But so I got Alan Goldberg and then Don the Dragon Wilson, who's on Alan Goldberg's side. They don't have a lot of good stuff to say about Dux.
Frank's lies are this kind. I flapped my wings so hard, my hands, that I levitated up and I landed on the moon.
Whoa.
But see, now I do know people that have trained with Dukes and actually do vouch for him. And then try to get the other side. I'm going to try to get some of them like on the channel as like a rebuttal, against what Alan and Don the Dragon Wilson says. So this could be a very interesting series of videos, but I want to get to the bottom of the story. That's what I want to get. And maybe try to build some kind of unity between the two sides. I don't know if that's even possible, but I'm more of the neutral guy, right?
Yeah. Well, look, if I'm being honest, if I'm getting really optimistic, I'd love to see something become there's been a bit of heat generated because of it, a bit of talk about it, and I'm hoping that people start watching Van Damme films again and starts trending. People that make films see this kind of thing and say, you know what, the time is right for this film. And so I feel like there would probably have to be some kind of reconciliation for it to happen. I would hate to think anyone gets in anyone's way. If there was a chance that it could be made, but there's people that are still bitter from what's happened in yesteryear, that would be a shame. But I feel like the time is right for that. I mean, previously, years ago, when Stallone made the Rocky Balboa, I think that's the title of it, isn't it? It'd be essentially Rocky Six.
Yeah, sure.
I remember when that came out, people were like, oh, really? Would that happen? Would he come out of retirement? Would he be? He's not. He's too old to have a professional fight. But real life has come along and squashed that negativity with the fact that you've got, I think you mentioned this with the Triller fights, you've got Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. and Evander Holyfield wanting to fight again, and all these celebrities. You can see this happening. You can see people calling out. If we lived in the world of Bloodsport, people calling out Frank Dux once they discovered this guy is who he says he is, to come and have the fight. Now, would they have the fight in the movie? I don't know. I think that would be cool to sort of see them build it up and not have it. And then behind closed doors, Bolo and Van Damme have that fight just for the fans, not for the world to see, and have it out in a really tough, hard slog fight. But getting back to the point, because I think it's so possible in people's imagination for this film to be a real thing, I would love to see that, there would be some kind of reconciliation in that way.
It seems like you got the story, pretty well fleshed out. Obviously, you got the synopsis, you got the trailer, and then would you write the script, for example? It almost sounds like you have most of it in your head at the very least.
I would probably, I'd love to write a script. I probably will, just for fun of it. I have so many ideas on it because having spent so much time on it, I've lived in this world to an extent. I've even, gone to the depths of imagining how would it have happened that Ariel Helwani wanted to speak to Swan Paredes about this. In order for the trailer to make sense, you have to put all these pieces together, because I think people will know if something doesn't fit, even if their subconscious will know it, even if their conscious doesn't. So I do have this whole world in my head and a million different ways in how it would work.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd love to work on a film like this. I'd definitely not turn down any opportunity to actually work on something like this. In fact, I've had some people reach out about other projects, and I really want to use this as a tool to start making some moves in this area. I don't want to be too ambitious as I'm going to write a script for this and try to get it pitched and get it made and whatnot. But if it was something that picked up its own steam, sort of developed. This is the trailer that I made, and it got all this attention. I have so much more on the cutting room floor that I didn't put in here that I could help develop. So even if it's just creating content for a pitch for this film to be made, is something that I'd be happily involved with.
I mean, there's a desire for it, man. There's a desire for that 80s and 90s revival. And then you mentioned Rocky Balboa was very successful, even though people didn't believe in it. But I think they would believe in a Bloodsport, I don't want to call it a reboot. I call it a true sequel, I guess. Because I don't really count the other ones as Bloodsport films. And I know they're going to reboot it 10 years ago. But it's, and I did make the point in the video when I initially broke it down, like Van Damme has talked about wanting to do one more great martial arts film, and why not come full circle? Started with Bloodsport. I mean, really, No Retreat, No Surrender, but really, as far as like everybody knows him from Bloodsport, and that was his main starring role. So he started with Bloodsport. Can you imagine if he ended at least the martial arts part of the career with another Bloodsport film? That would be insane.
Yeah. Oh, it would just be a culmination of everything as well. You know, it'd be a culmination of the action films he's done, the martial arts films he's done, and the more serious roles he's had, you know, the JCVD role that he did. Having that all come together, I think now would be the time is right where people, like you sort of touched on with the nostalgia. Nostalgia's a big thing these days. I hear a lot of people saying, you know, one of my favorite comments is in the trailer, people talking about the music.
Oh yeah, just
film,
right
right?
when you start the trailer, it's like haunting, and you're just drawn in, man.
Yeah, I mean, I had to rework some of the original soundtrack, so I'll probably release a video because a lot of people have asked about that, saying, "Hey, can you just release the audio tracks?" So I'll probably just make a video with all the audio tracks I did because I did, you know, remake some of the songs. But the point I was getting at with that is when you think about today, the films that are being made, you know, they wanted to redo Terminator, they wanted to, you know, Star Wars and all that type of stuff. This would be the next thing that you could pull out of the 80s that people want to see. You know, you had the Ghostbusters film that they're remaking. They're remaking it with, I think, with the original cast, and people are really excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Having the original, having a true sequel, as you put it, and I agree with you, to the original Bloodsport film would be just such a great cap on what has come before. And speaking of that, I know that the other thing that made me want to make it as realistic as possible is seeing in interviews from years ago, Van Damme talking about how he wanted to make it. And what was so endearing to me that made me really want to work on it as well is watching that interview that when they're interviewing Bolo Yeung in that restaurant, when him and Van Damme are together, and hearing what Bolo has to say about him and seeing those two guys together, the friends together, you just watching that interview, you're like, I would love to see these guys make that film.
Yeah.
And the irony of that scene in the trailer where Chong Li is saying, "Who's next? Why not next? There's nobody." He's basically, as you pointed out, and I was so happy that you pointed that out in that interview. He's talking about there's nobody after Van Damme.
Yeah.
There's Bruce Lee, and there's Van Damme, and there's nobody since. Seeing Bolo and Van Damme together, I think is something that Van Damme has wanted for a long time as well, because they had so much steam, and people always talk about them two together as well because of double
impact, man. Oh, another amazing fight in that film, but I wish they did more films. I mean, they only had the two,
Yeah.
They only had the two. But the funny thing is, watching those growing up when I was young, one of my friends, because we didn't see like a ton of films, but we had a few like on video cassette, and he would always refer, "Oh, that's that guy that's in all the Van Damme movies." It's like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, at the time when we were kids, sure, but really only two,
Yeah. No, but those two, the fact that they were in those two films together, sort of in sort of quick succession, I guess, when you look at the career, tells you how much of the impact that Bolo has and the chemistry they have as
a great chemistry, man. Yeah.
That people would think that that's every film that they're in together. He must be in all the films, because in my memory, I just remember that guy being the perpetual bad guy because he's just stained into everyone's mind as the villain, and he's such a natural villain to Van Damme in that way. They're just the perfect combination. I think you said it's the best martial arts movie ever. I think it's just a perfect film as far as that type of film.
Everything just
80s film
came together, man. It was the right time. It was like this new up and coming star who was so hungry and so talented. You had a great villain, an amazing story, amazing script by Sheldon Lettich, amazing idea, from Frank Dux. And we got to give him credit because he even choreographed those fights. I was going to mention, if they ever do this Bloodsport true sequel, and Frank Dux is still heavily involved in the martial arts, still doing the Dux Ryu and other things. So what if they got him to choreograph like any fights that were in that film. Would that be incredible? Like I said, let it come full circle for all the guys involved, not just Van Damme, but even Dukes, because he's obviously completely and always will be associated with Bloodsport, of course, you know. Imagine if he had the involvement of choreographing the fights in the new one. That'd be insane. Because you know he's going to come up with great ideas. Well,
it's interesting because it's you'll notice that there's no fighting in the trailer that I did, because I thought that's a realm I didn't know how you would tackle.
Yeah, sure.
Because, you know, in the film, the original Bloodsport film, those fights and those the choreography makes sense. I mean, it's not realistic fighting, as we all know. And thanks to Bloodsport, because it's probably what's inspired the UFC in a lot of ways. But still, I'd be curious to see how that would play that the fighting would play in the new movie. It'd be interesting to see what would happen in a context of, you know, a modern Bloodsport, if that makes any sense. But
it would be, man. It would be. It'd be interesting to see how they handle it.
Where Bloodsport should get credit is that put that visually in the public's mind. This could almost be a new way of this could become a new convention within film and television, in the fact that you know, a lot of people have commented on my video saying, is this real? Is this not real? I don't know. Maybe it's a pitch. You know, maybe this is Van Damme making this to get this film made. You know, I did say on my page that what it's designed for is to get fans to give me feedback for a film they want to see, and then I'll make a trailer. And then if the fans speak out and say, Hollywood, Netflix, whoever, make this film, and it's undeniable, then that film can get made. So, you know, we're in an age where people can really dictate what they want to see. So if I can help, you know, bring the fans films to life, let's do that. I invite fans to tell me what they want to see. I'll put stuff together. If they like it, they can vote for it via social media. They can go on YouTube, and then if that gets made, that's great. And I mean, that wouldn't really mean me getting paid, but I mean, I have to find a way to make it my job somehow, and I'm sure I will find, you know, some way to parlay this into a career.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing, because the thing is, at the end of the day, Hollywood wants a sure thing. That's why they always make sequels. They make what they think people want. But something like this, it's like they can see the demand. I'm sure they could just hire people or have people just go through the comments and see. I get comments on that. I'm sure you had a lot. People literally saying, I will pay to see this. It's like you have a guaranteed audience that will pay to see this. You know? So it's an era and a new way that Hollywood could more realistically gauge interest, because you're getting real fan feedback of people, millions of people, with this Bloodsport one, for example, saying, we need this. I will pay to watch this. So it's more likely something like that could get greenlit, because Hollywood, oh, okay, almost guaranteed to make money off this one, you know?
Yeah. And so to make this film would sort of get all those fans that have wanted to see something like this for a long time. You'd be able to get new fans in that haven't seen something like this for a long time in a lot of ways. I know you've got your Rockies and whatnot, but this comes from a different, you know, from a different kind of line. I just think it would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah.
Yeah. And then you got the third group of people that are just curious, you know, maybe a semi-casual fan, but they're just like, I got to see this just out of pure curiosity and because other people are talking about it, you know?
I'd love to see the person that goes, I remember that. People that, you know, haven't kept up with it, people that would have never seen, you know, films like Pound of Flesh or In Hell or, you know, sure. or even The Bouncer. They're not going to have known what's happened with Van Damme, perhaps. You know, they're going to be like, isn't that guy that did the splits on that Volvo? Oh, I remember his films. And those people are going to watch, you're going to be like, all these people talking about this, I have to see this film.
I'm still kicking. I must be on Broadway.